Mhm. Give Dave a chance to sit down.
There we go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This meeting of the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority is now called to order. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular HRA meeting of July 18th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've approved the minutes. Second, we have approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting.
I'll move the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've approved the agenda. Our third item is the consent calendar. Mr. Devich?
Thank you, Chair Supple, members of the HRA. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. And once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and the recommended actions will also have been approved and no further action on those items is necessary. There's only two items on consent this evening. Item A is consideration of the approval of a resolution authorizing an amendment to the Richfield rediscovered contract for private development of 7333 Emerson Avenue. And then item B, consideration of the approval of a resolution authorizing an amendment to Richfield rediscovered contract for private redevelopment at 7533 DuPont Avenue. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar. Aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you, Chair Supple, members of the HRA. This relates to the project that is on the former city garage site, and I'm going to turn this over to Karen Barton to make the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Supple, Commissioners. The Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority approved the establishment of Tax Increment Financing District number 2014-1 in February of 2014 for the financing of certain improvements within the former city garage site redevelopment project. At that time, there was no developer selected or any specific development project slated for the site. In February of 2016, the HRA entered into a contract for private development with Masaba Capital Development, LLC, for redevelopment of the former city garage site with 88 units of senior housing. As part of the contract, the HRA agreed to provide up to $2,400,000 in tax increment financing assistance as warranted to facilitate the project development. The developer is preparing to close on the property and it will begin construction of the project in the next few months and has finalized the project costs and provided TIF qualified costs, allowing for the issuance of the tax increment limited revenue note. So the resolution tonight basically is just assigning the TIF, selling the TIF note to the developer for this project as was agreed to in the contract. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We also have a representative from Masaba here this evening as well.
Just for my edification and for the constituency, what exactly, how do you quantify TIF qualified tax? I mean, I read that and I said, okay, what qualifies part of the purchase price or part of the price for TIF treatment?
There's two parts to that. First off is that there was an identified need in the early financial pro forma showing that there would need to be financial assistance, public financial assistance to see this project come to fruition, and therefore that was put into the development contract with the developer. The second part is the qualified costs, specifically are things that by state law are eligible to be reimbursed through TIF, and basically in this type of district, it's anything that's below ground. So the cost to construct the underground parking, any utilities that they put in, things like that.
I don't suppose you'd be able to explain to me why below ground I'm just, I mean, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I mean, I guess they have to allocate it to something. It seems kind of strange.
Yeah, it's just the state law this is a redevelopment district. So in a redevelopment district, it can only be things that are below ground for some reason. I don't know exactly why the law is set that way. If it were a housing district, obviously it could go to the construction because it's to affordability, but each
Okay.
TIF district is slightly different.
Okay, so the qualified needs may change depending on the purpose or what the district is gonna entail or what's gonna be built there? Is that what you?
Not in this case. This
No.
is a redevelopment district, but in
Right.
other districts, yes, different
Okay.
items are considered qualified costs.
So the two criteria is number one, need of the developer, and number two, meeting the definition of qualified costs.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Just to make a point, in the financial review, one of the things is the developer's gonna be paying us $975,000 for the property, and we will get the additional $244,000, so we'll get the full value of the property, which will be reimbursed with interest from the tax increment available after the tip note and the developer have been paid. So I'm really happy to hear that we were able to work on that and qualify it that way. So we get paid because those dollars were supposed to help offset, of course, the Public Works building that also, has already been built. So nice work, the staff.
Are there any other questions? Did someone want to make the motion then?
I move that we accept the proposal as stated.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to adopt the resolution approving the issuance of and providing the form, terms, covenants, and directions for the issuance of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority's Tax Increment Limited Revenue Note, Series 2016, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $2,176,055 to Mesaba Capital Development LLC for the redevelopment of the former city garage site. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we have approved the recommendation. Okay, our next item is consideration of the resolutions approving the 2017 proposed HRA budget and tax levy and the 2016 revised HRA budget. Mr. Devich.
Again, thank you, Chair Supple, members of the HRA. This, on an annual basis, is what we go through to put together the game plan, the financial game plan to run the HRA for the next year. And in this particular item, it's going to be two-part. I'm going to ask Karen Barton to make an overview of the budget with some overhead slides that she's put together. And then Chris Regis is here to follow up with his part of it. So I'm going to ask Karen to just start right in.
Thank you, City Manager, Chair Supple, and Commissioners. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what the HRA budget is covering and kind of the history of it. The HRA staff that's funded through the 2016-2017 budget consists of 5 full-time and 4 part-time employees. That includes John Stark, the CD director, myself, 2 housing specialists at Job Share, that's Julie Urban and Kate Aitchison, our accountant, Mert Link, secretary, Jackie Scott, our Section 8 specialist, Lynette Chambers, and our Section 8 techs, who also Job Share, Jennifer Gislin Lee and Cindy Velde. The overall budgets for 2016 and 2017, the 2016 approved was $3,097,540,000. The 2016 revised is $5,328,050, and 2017 proposed is $4,218,250. The increase in the 2016 revised budget, as you noticed, was significant. The majority of that had to do with a pass-through Met Council grant of a couple grants actually, totaling $1.3 million, primarily for the Lindale Gardens project site. There's also an additional allocation of $475,000 for property acquisitions, and then we were awarded additional NSP funds through federal NSP funds through the county of $190,000. Overall, the 2017 proposed budget is 1.1 million less than the 2016 revised budget.
Karen, can I just add, just for others watching at home, what are NSP funds, federal NSP?
Those are neighborhood stabilization program funds, and they were awarded to the city several years ago. It was a total of about $1.1 million. And we were able to acquire foreclosed properties, rehab them, and then resell them. So then the proceeds that came back from the resale, we were able to reuse. And there were additional funds this year that came through that we didn't think we would be able to use, but they said we could use it one more time.
So that's, in other words, I mean, that's a great way where we've got federal funds to help us with purchasing those homes. And of course, when we tried to stockpile some of those homes during the worst of times during the foreclosure crisis, and then turned around and put a bunch of RR homes on them. So it was a great payback on those federal dollars, and it looks like we're able to keep on doing that. It's a really good advantageous use of someone else's funds to help our city.
So at this point, we've used all the funds up, though, at this point, is that correct, or?
Correct. It was supposed to have a 5-year limit on reuse of the funds, and so we weren't anticipating being able to reuse the funds from the sale of the last of the properties. But then they surprised us and said, "Sure, go ahead and use them." So,
Oh, great.
we weren't shy. This is just kind of a quick overview of the approved and expended budgets since 2009. And as you can see, you know, when we put together the budgets, they're really considered our best case scenario, and our actual expenditures generally do not equal what we budget for. The budgets are assuming that everything is going to happen that we're budgeting for, but reality is that just isn't. Some of the things to point out in the 2016-2017 budget, most of the funding for the programs projects that are budgeted changed less than 3%. We do have $70,000 allocated for placemaking at Lakes at Lindale, and that includes the wayfinding signage and those types of things. Our costs to administer the Section 8 program continue to increase, although the federal funding does not, so we're having to subsidize that more. The new home and transformation home loans have been reduced. That was based on recent usage over the last couple of years, but however, we'll continue to evaluate that on an ongoing basis, and if we need to increase the funding, we absolutely will, if there's more demand as we continue to market it. We also have changed the way that we're funding our Kids at Home and transformation home loans. And then we're allocating $1.45 million for acquisition and demolition, or for assisting eligible redevelopment projects in the next year.
Chair Supple and members of the HRA, before we get off that page, if you can put it back up again, I think one thing that we need to consider, and especially when you have the opportunity to deal with our federal representatives and senators, the idea that we're spending more money locally than we're getting back from the federal government to administer the Section 8 program is problematic. I mean, we can do it right now, but I don't know how long we'll be able to do that. And you know that for us to locally be able to deal with our Section 8 puts us a cut above what a lot of other cities are doing when they're using the county. And I'm not putting the county down. I'm just simply saying that when you have a local person who's well-versed in the program and well-versed in the properties in the community that have Section 8 available units, and the people who are in those units, it is a way better way, a more efficient way to operate, and certainly a kinder way to operate a Section 8 program for the folks who participate in it. And I'd hate to see us at some point in the future lose the luxury of having to be able to do that. So, I think whenever you get the opportunity, mention to our federal representatives, we have to get enough money. They're not even giving us enough money. I mean, even inflationary kind of upkeep for the program. And it's just really important. When the concierge matter was up, I mean, I think we did an outstanding job in dealing with those people to make sure they got taken care of. And I would say a lot better than whatever would have happened if we didn't have a local program. So I just can't emphasize how important it is, and that, for the long run, financially, it's problematic.
Commissioner Gotel?
Yeah, I just want to add to that because I also know that at the county level, they're also struggling because they're not getting enough funding. And in fact, because of that, they have delayed inspections up to 60 days. Well, you know what? Property owners are not going to hold open properties because they're running up so fast. So if we didn't do it locally, we would have lost those opportunities to put Section 8 people into really great apartment living in Richfield where they wanted to be. So it's no fault to the county, but they're having the difficulties too of trying to find staffing because they're not getting reimbursed any better than we are.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those catch-22. So we're at least ahead of that.
Yeah.
So we can get out there within a week's time and get those inspected and turn those.
Yep.
And that means a landlord might rent to a Section 8 versus a landlord won't rent to a Section 8.
Absolutely. That's a very good
Exactly.
point. I mean, the quickness that we're able to react to those items, those issues,
Yes.
makes it all the more likely that we're going to be able to have those units available for people here.
Yep.
A couple of things that I mentioned on the prior slide about change in funding for a couple of our programs. In 2016 and prior, our Housing and Redevelopment Fund was providing most of the funding for our Kids at Home and Transformation Home Loans. In the 2016 revised and 2017 proposed, we're recommending to shift the funding of those programs to the Capital Improvement Fund and the Development Account. What this does is this makes the Housing and Redevelopment Fund available for more traditional redevelopment activities, such as acquisition and demolition for our properties, as well as some of the commercial. We just haven't been able to do much with commercial because it's so much more expensive. So this will free up some additional funds for us to do that. Looking forward from there, 2018 and beyond, our Capital Improvement Fund and Development Account are finite funding sources, and we really need to look for a source of revenue to fund these programs in the long term. We have sufficient funding to, fund them for the next several years. They don't take up, that much money of our funding program, but we should start looking right away at other funding sources to take care of that. 2016-2017 budget, looking at our funding sources. I'm not going to go through all these numbers for you. You've got them on your slides and handouts there, but our funding sources include taxes, intergovernmental revenue, some miscellaneous revenues, transfers, and then expenditures out of the HRA budget include personnel, other services and charges, capital outlay, and transfers as well. If you want any details on any of that, I would have our staff accountant come up and tell you, but otherwise we'll move on. Our HRA levy history from 2010 to 2017 is up on the screen. We typically levy the maximum that we can each year. Our 2017 proposed levy is $521,080, which reflects $22,500 increase over 2016. And basically, this equates to an average tax of $34.52 per household in 2017, which is about a $1.41 increase over 2016 levy. The amounts.
Does the average taxpayer in Richfield have any idea that a small portion of their money goes towards HRA activities? Because I think that there's a really positive feeling in the community of a lot of the things that have happened because of this, but they have no idea that this is part of their levy. I think that we need to tell good news this way a little bit better, communicating with the community. Except for some residual resistance to tax increment financing, it's not the way it used to be. Really, we have just what we do here is viewed as extremely positive by the community from everybody I talk to, and yet where this money comes from, including their own tax levy, is just not really there. The understanding is not there.
Mr. Devich, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, well, actually, the comment that I wanted to make, and it's kind of along the same lines. You know, even though there's an increase over 2016, if you look at the history, in real dollars, we're collecting less money than we did back in 2010 and 2011. So, you know, that makes it challenging to keep up these programs, and especially in those years, because the way the state statute develops HRA levies is based on the market value, basically, of a community. And as the values go down, your ability to levy the tax goes down. And so, again, in real dollars, we're operating with less dollars than we did in 2010 and 2011. So it's a challenge and it's a stretch to make these things work. And you're right, Commissioner Rubenstein. We are getting a heck of a bang for the buck.
I know. I don't think people realize the matching and the contributions and how far your $1.60 or whatever per household, what it really produces.
We should take a look at that and do something. It's got to be something fairly simple for people to look at and just, you know, just be able to catch in a few minutes and take a look at. But it's a point well taken. We should do that.
Yeah, what does it provide you? I mean, just the wayfinding signs are really cool that I've been seeing.
You know, the famous "your tax dollars at worth," your HRA dollars at work.
True.
True.
This next slide just shows since 2010 through present the HRA levy versus the max that we could levy. And again, it is based on the property value. So that's why there's a fluctuation in how much we can levy each year and how much we can collect. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
Commissioner? Just one point of discussion, you know, on something that, you know, I always bring up. I'm looking down the road, and I'm looking at the 77th Street underpass, and I'm looking at all that redevelopment, and I'm looking at our staff level, and I'm wondering how we're going to do it. You know, because that's going to bust everything wide open. And I mean, there's already people talking to us. We already know that. And so I have real concerns that we figure out how to find a few, even if it's consultants for a short term or whatever, you know, for what I know is going to be a barrage of things on your plate. And we really need to sift through it and take the time to pick the best projects and take the time. And that's going to really overload our staff if we don't do something.
Chair Supple, Commissioner Gotel, that is again a very good point. Our community development department that really staffs the HRA is probably, I would say, what, Karen, maybe half the level that it was maybe 10, 12 years ago?
Literally, yes.
Half.
Yep.
And yes, you know, as things pick up, yes, we will have to take a look at doing that because we simply don't have, you know, the staffing level to cover all of that. And there remains a lot of interest in Richfield right now. You know, who knows what's going to happen to the economy, but if the economy kind of stays the way it is, there is a strong interest in Richfield. And there's a lot of people that keep on, you know, looking at ideas for Richfield, and you know, and they pitch the ideas to Karen and John. And you know, you're right, commissioners, that they have to take a look at that and size up what projects are good and what aren't, and what could be added to those projects and brought forward. And it takes a lot of time.
Are there any additional questions?
I'll make the motion then to adopt the resolutions approving the 2017 proposed Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget and tax levy and the 2016 revised Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Oh, Mr. Devich, before
Actually,
we
what
vote.
I would ask you before you actually, the motion's out there and the second, I wonder before you take the vote, if I could ask Mr. Regis to just do the second part of that.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair and board members. The bylaws of the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority require that an annual budget be submitted to the HRA Commissioners for approval. So accordingly, the 2017 proposed budget and tax levy and 2016 revised budget are presented for your approval. In addition, Minnesota state statutes require adoption of a preliminary tax levy from each taxing authority. The proposed tax levy must be certified to the Hennepin County Auditor by September 15th, 2016. Any amendments to the proposed budget, which would increase the property tax levy, must be made prior to September 15th, 2016. No increases in the tax levy are permissible after that date, only reductions. Final certification of the HRA tax levy is part of the city's budget process. The tax levy as proposed is the maximum levy established by law and represents a 4.51% increase or $22,500 from the previous year's levy. And that's pretty much all.
Do we have any other questions on the new information? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we've adopted both resolutions. The next item we have would be HRA discussion items. Are there any questions from anyone that you would like to bring forward?
Is there any updates on the Lindale Garden site or the Cedar Corridor across from Target Home Depot, Phase 2?
Yes, Chair Supple, Commissioners. The Lindale Garden site, they have begun work on the shoreline improvements. So if you drive by there, you'll see some activity going on, and they've done some clearance of the site and are just pulling permits for the actual beginning of the construction of those site improvements, which include the trails and the bridge and the performance stage and those items.
Go ahead.
Since I live right there, I was walking around the other day and talking with some of the workmen, and they were cutting down trees and doing some soil grading and things like that. And their big concern was there's so much fill.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be something that, you know, they may be coming back to us with a redesign on that because of the amount of fill. I could have told them about that, but nevertheless, they've discovered through their own scientific testing. But I was really happy to see people there and working on it, and happy to get things started.
Yes. And can you tell us about the Cedar Point 2 as well?
Sure. We've been in contact with the developer, and they've just sent out an additional update to the residents who live in the project area. They are working on getting their financing pulled together, and we will be meeting with them in the next couple weeks to see where they're at with all of that. And they're still right now targeting to break ground in the spring on the project. Cedar Point South, which is Anderson Companies, they are moving forward. We've submitted a grant application to the Met Council for funding for the Richfield Parkway extension for those 2 blocks. And we've made it through the first round, and we're crossing our fingers for the second round. And they're still on target to get acquisitions done this fall, and they also would break ground next spring as well.
Next spring, okay. So are there any other discussion items? I do have one question. You know, the TIF district we approved tonight, when do they plan to break ground there?
They have to break ground before November 1st, I believe, or it might be the 31st, but November. And they are on track to do that as well. They'd like to get it started right away in September, but it sounds like they've got a little hold up with an approval on their phase 2 or review of their phase 2. So it might be October when they.
Is that going to disturb traffic on 65th or 76th or 75th Street there?
It shouldn't have much of an impact to traffic.
Good.
I'm
Got enough.
anticipating they got enough property, yeah, to be able to stage equipment there. And
All right, cool, thank you. All right, seeing no one else wanting to bring up a discussion item, we'll move to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair Supple. I'm just going to continue with what we were just doing and give you an item update that I was going to talk about. We received our comments back from the Minnesota Department of Transportation on the underpass. And so we're working on that. There isn't any real major thing there. I mean, they're always going to make some suggestions, and we're going through that and are resubmitting it back to them. It's, again, they're nothing really huge. And I would think at this point in time, then once we get our, and I'll get an update from Public Works as to when we'll have those submitted back, but it's going to be rather quick. And then I would think it's not going to take much longer after they get those comments back for them to come back and give us something. Once they do, then we're going to move forward with the acquisitions immediately. So, and we're already in the process. It's just that we're not going to initiate anything officially until that comes back. But it's just over the horizon, or maybe it's closer than that. One other item, and it's not directly HRA related, but it's still in the whole area of upgrading that Cedar Point area. We are moving along and should have no later than October 14th, all of the rights for all the property that we've been working on for the parking lot to the east of the Cedar Avenue liquor store.
Yeah.
And that's moving along really well. And the state is being very helpful in getting that done for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be of a very, very, very minimal cost. And, I see that happening. Right now, I have the parking lot in design, and it looks like we'll be able to do two things over there. One is I've never liked the layout of the entrance to the liquor store at Cedar. I just think it wasn't the best plan. I don't like the fact that it's all hard-faced when you look at that store. All you see is concrete and parking lot, and it could easily be softened. I don't like the fact that there's parking spaces that actually, on the front of the store off of 66, that actually people are backing up into the driveway as people are coming in, to exit the store. I don't like the fact that they put that big island out there that makes it kind of a pinch point as they go around.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the land that we're going to be able to get, and we have an ability to pick up, to have 36 spaces out there. So,
Wow.
Looking at the design, we can do the 36 spaces, do a really nice softening and a correcting of the entrance so you have no cars parked in front.
Okay.
But we will soften that with the landscaping that will match what else is over there. And then we're going to, and then we'll also be doing some work on the outside of the store. So I think that is going to really be nice. It's going to better match what we see out there. We're going to take that old sign down and put up a brand new sign, and we can move it closer to Trunk Highway 77. And we can also open up that space, and we'll use that to help correct our driveway problem. And so that's moving right along. And I believe we're going to be shutting our Cedar Avenue liquor store down for the remodeling right around September 10th. And so the contract's all in place, and I'm really excited about that project.
So we're not going to be picking up our wine from there, I suppose, for the wine
I really
event.
think not.
Okay, all right.
But what we're hoping and what I feel really good about is that we'll have the remodeling done, and hopefully we'll have that parking lot done, sometime around mid-November. And so the crunch time when we really make our bucks in that business, that store is going to be open. It's going to have 35% more floor space than it has now.
Wow.
with just beautiful coolers and a beautiful tasting section, and
Oh, my goodness.
better gondolas for the wine displays. It's going to be
wonderful.
beautiful. Different floor, different ceiling,
Yeah,
different everything. It's going to be gorgeous.
wonderful. Now if we could just get to the Penn Avenue store,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another story.
I know.
Is there anything else? All right, thank you. Next, we have claims and payroll.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the claims and payroll. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we've approved those. Seeing no further business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.